This is Larry Henry with Chris Wassel, my colleague at gambling.com, talking about the upcoming Stanley Cup. And Chris, we have two teams that have been to the Cup before but haven't won it, the Vegas Golden Knights and the Florida Panthers. What's it going to take, Chris, for Florida to win the Stanley Cup?
Simply for Florida, they need to continue the momentum that they've had over the past 9 games, and arguably dozen. This is a team that has won 11 of their last 12 games. Yes, quite a few by overtime, but that also indicates the fact that they can play close games, which is something that Vegas hasn't always been able to do in these playoffs. You have the goaltending of Sergei Bobrovsky, who has been incredible, producing a 2.21 goals against average and .935 save percentage. And then you have Matthew Tkachuk, who's been absolutely magical. 9 goals in the 4 game-winning goals alone, including the series clincher against Carolina, which still has people talking even more than a week later. Those are the 2 players that they need to produce. Obviously, Florida needs to continue to have some semblance of a power play against Vegas. Vegas's special teams are not so good. And the key with Florida also will be their depth scoring ultimately and how they fare. And that's how they can win the Stanley Cup.
I don't think you can discount, they were the wild card team that got into the East. They were discounted at the beginning, but, and this, Chris, you've written about it. They beat 3 of the best teams in the league, not just the East, the entire league. They beat Boston, then Toronto, then Carolina. So they're clearly not to be taken lightly.
Absolutely. I mean, this is, keep in mind, 3 of the top 4 teams in the entire National Hockey League that they beat. They didn't just beat Stiffs.
Yeah, absolutely. So they've got something at play, and that's something that bettors may want to keep in mind too going forward. Looking at Vegas, so it opens up Saturday. The Cup series opens up Saturday on the Strip in Las Vegas. The Knights are tough. They're very tough, and I mean that not just in the sense of hockey play, but they're just big, tough players. You got Haig 6'6", Aiden Hill, the goalie 6'4". You got Braden McNabb 6'4". You got just on and on and on. Stone is, I think, 6'3", 6'2", 6'3". It's a big, fast, physical team. Chris, how will that come into play, and what will it take for Vegas to bring the Stanley Cup to Southern Nevada?
Vegas's experience factor is something that has to be noted. Unlike Florida, it's been 27 years since they last appeared in the Stanley Cup. Vegas appeared in their first year of existence under coach Gerard Gallant. And the Misfits, as they were called, or the trio known as William Karlsson, Jonathan Marchessault, and Riley Smith, especially Marchessault, who has 9 goals, by the way. All of them even strength, which is something that is again a bit of an issue, but it is not without this following fact, and this is something key when bettors need to consider this. Vegas has not been as bad on their power play as it appears. They've had a lot of chances. They've ran into quite a few good penalty killing teams. Florida is not necessarily one of them. Even though Florida's penalty kill is at 71%, that's still not very good when you look at league averages around 77 in the playoffs. They need Eichel to obviously score goals. He did not score in the last round against Dallas. I know he had 4 assists in the final 5 games of this series. They didn't bring him in to dish off the puck to somebody. He needs to start scoring. Obviously, Marchessault needs to start scoring on the power play. They need that special teams edge for when the goals do not come, because as we all know, Vegas is averaging 3.65 goals a game in the playoffs, but when they're losing games, they're averaging a mere goal and a half. So for them, it simply comes down to balanced scoring, timely saves from Aiden Hill, and most importantly, don't drop the first game at home.
That's a great point. You brought up a good point too, because one of the things about Vegas throughout the entire season, they had the least penalized team in the league. And then remember, Chris, in one of the Dallas losses, McNabb, 2 slashing penalties. resulted, I think, in both penalties resulted in goals for Dallas. So if Cassidy can keep them disciplined, and keep clogging up the middle with those big players, I don't know. I think where are you going to go when it comes to betting? Are you what is Vegas -130 to win the cup, or how are you going to go? What are your final thoughts about how this could go?
Now, for those that are wondering, Vegas and Florida are pretty much in sync when it comes to betting. Series wise, Vegas is in about the -125 to -135 range. Ironically, game one, right around -130 to 140 at home. So there's not much of a difference. There isn't a value bet to be had. Even with Florida, it's kind of more or less the same. They're right around even to +110 or 115 from game one to series. There's not that much of a difference. So what you're looking at for betting wise, toss a few dollars on the amount of games the series might go. If you think the series is going to go 6, you can get +200 there. You can get +205. If you want to go a little more precise and you say Florida wins in 6, that pays out a nice tidy +450 to +500. Again, betting on the Stanley Cup Finals is different than any other round because you're at the end. And you don't need to bet huge amounts of money on it. You really don't. You really do need to bet with your head here, and not go overboard. So my picks: Florida in 6 at +475, and you can do the over of 5.5 games. Now that, Larry, and for those listening, you might want to shop a little bit there.
Are you looking at Florida winning it in 6?
That is my prediction. I got Vegas in 6. I got Florida in 4, and I live bet that one as full confession. Not only that, like everyone else, sweated out game 4 betting Florida in regulation because it was at +140 as opposed to even. So again, you're getting money on the dollar, but you're taking risk. So you have to be a little careful.
Well, Florida's already marched through Boston, Toronto, Carolina. Can they take down the Knights, which a team that has home ice advantage in the fortress on the Strip? So we shall see. Chris Wassel, my colleague at gambling.com, thank you so much for that great advice. Great talking to you always about ice hockey. Nobody knows more about it than you do. Everybody go to gambling.com to see what Chris has written about this, and for other betting advice, go to gambling.com. Again, this is Larry Henry with Chris Wassel. Thanks for watching.